It's great to be here. We have Arthur Young, who I just met about 24 minutes ago, and we've never talked before. I think we've had some Facebook exchanges on the groups. And let me give you a brief introduction, and then Arthur and I will talk. And so Arthur he's near Newcastle in the UK. He's more or less retired. He worked in the retail trade years ago. And he's very involved in two groups. One is Stand Up to Stammering. The other is From Stuttering to Confidence. And he recently joined my group, Stein on Stuttering. Arthur wanted to get together. He reached out to me. I was kind of surprised. Never really talked to him before. And he said he wants to get together to raise awareness of stuttering and help people. And I am all for that. And so we've been talking the last 24 minutes, and we're just gonna talk. We're just gonna talk about our stuttering history and journey briefly, and how we work through it, and then we're gonna maybe ask each other some questions or so. We'll keep it short. And just a brief thing on me. I'm Larry Stein. I stuttered all my life, really up until my mid-50s. And then I worked through it. Now I have a website, Stein on Stuttering, and a blog and a Facebook site, and I'm writing a book that's not going to be called Stein on Stuttering, but it's going to come out soon. So why don't we just get going? Arthur, it's been a pleasure to meet you. And why don't you just begin it? Tell us about your stuttering past and how you've worked through it, and go.
Larry, that's really nice. Thank you very, very much. And all the nice things that you've just said. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to meet you as well. My sort of journey started when I was, like most people who have dysfluency, at a very young age. And it was only came relevant during school days, and that's when the green monster reared its ugly head, and everybody heard my sort of dysfluency, and that sowed the seed for myself for becoming what's known as a covert stammerer, someone who hides away, similar to what you would class as a wall clock. Everybody else is conversing, and you're standing there and you're not getting involved with conversations.
Yeah.
I kind of just wanted to come on these stuttering groups and meet folk like Larry to raise awareness. I myself would never have been seen on any videos. I hated my own voice. I just didn't like myself because I was a person who stammered. And it was a case where nobody, when I was a child, would help me. And I want to try and give encouragement to people who are watching now that this can be done if you believe in yourself. And if you finally, parents and children admit to themselves that it is okay to stammer, because we do so much trying not to stammer, which then in turn makes it more stressful for ourselves, resulting in more nervousness, more doubt regarding our inability to converse. And that then adds on to your teen years, mixing with girls, mixing with adults, going out socializing, and that impacts all the way. The insecurities that a stutter brings is incredible. And underneath the skin and underneath the face that people can see is someone, whether it be a male or female, has got all these insecurities inside that nobody can see. And we need to show that we stammer, but there should be no shame attached to stammering. And I wanted just to come on to more or less say, if you've got belief in yourself and the confidence to move forward with your life, whether you stammer or not, I believe you can do this.
So how did you get to that point?
I believe that I've always been in myself reassured, a confident person, although the stammer seemed to put the brakes on that. I couldn't be probably the outgoing person that I am now. And I believe that around about the age of 50, 52, I began to have belief in myself. It might sound corny, but I began to love myself more. And
What led to that?
I kind of, I was probably thinking to myself, I don't want to keep on going through all those years of not being able to do the things that I've wanted to do.
Yeah.
I sort of, I love, I've got a hobby, golf. I play golf. And one of the things regarding golf,
They have golf courses out in the UK, do they?
one of the things about golf, when you're a captain of a golf club, you've got to do a lot of public speaking.
Ah,
And I knew that I was a friendly person. And at the golf clubs, they always used to say to me, how do you not fancy becoming a golf club captain? Not that I couldn't do the job. I was frightened of public speaking.
yep.
But in 2018, I bit the bullet and I became captain of my local golf club.
Oh. So do you find, and then I'm going to talk a little bit, do you find that public speaking is easier for you than regular conversation?
I would say it's the mindset, Larry. As soon as I knew I was going to do this, there was no stopping me. Wild horses couldn't hold me back. There was something I had to prove to myself.
Did your speech improve from doing public speaking?
I would think my confidence has improved. Probably not my speech. I've never been a severe stammerer.
Oh, okay.
My speech hasn't been really severe. Some incidents in my life have impacted my speech more than they should have done. And that's made a mountain out of a molehill.
Yeah. Whereas I was a very severe stutterer. I mean, I was covert in that I didn't talk about it, but you met me for a minute and you would know that, wow. I mean, my friends talk about that. They thought I was having a stroke. My head shaking, teeth clenched. I mean, so severe that there were times that I wouldn't even remember what I was talking about. I wouldn't even remember what the other person was talking about. I mean, we're talking really severe. So what I had to do, I had to relearn how to speak. And I modeled myself after broadcasters, specifically Matt Lauer of the Today Show, he's had his difficulties now, but in those days he was I thought he was a very compelling speaker. And so if you watch Matt Lauer and you watch me, I'm a pretty good mimic. And so I just broke down how is Matt Lauer talking? I said, well, he's using hand gestures, he's using phrases. I actually learned using phrases in speech therapy when I was a little kid, and I remembered that because I was in my mid-50s also, and I had to save my business or it was going to fail because I didn't have enough clients, and I couldn't talk well enough to bring in new clients, and I couldn't use the phone. I could make friendly phone calls, but I couldn't talk to strangers. And I certainly couldn't ask questions. That was very difficult for me. I couldn't introduce myself. I was not able to say my name until I was 57 years old. That's the truth. And after that point, then things happened. But it took me a year and a half or two, so I relearned to speak. And then I went after the psychological issues. And the whole thing took me pretty much a couple of years, just about. And I'm just the luckiest guy around, but I was very severe stutterer. but it improved over the years as I got into working in the work world. And but to tell you how badly it affected me, I always wanted to be an investment advisor. That was my hobby. That was my passion as a kid. I would read Business Week at the age of 11. I would read the Wall Street Journal. As a kid, and but I decided to become an accountant, CPA, because I thought, you wouldn't have to talk much. And I didn't even know what an accountant did. And I became a CPA, a master's in tax, and I still didn't know what they did. I was terrible. I was terrible. And, deep, deep psychological problems from it, deep depressions. I was a mess. But working in the work world, and they kind of encouraged me to talk more, and then become a consultant, a writer consultant, and that got me talking more. But I still, to save my business, I had to really completely change how I talk, and that's what I did, and that's what I help people with now. So, so in terms of confidence for you, what was it that helped you become confident?
I think I was tired. I was really tired of not kind of putting myself out there. I saw everybody else having the glory, not the glory, but everybody paying attention to them. And I was always on the sidelines. And I just thought, well, if I don't change, this is going to be me for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I've got to show nobody else. I've got to show me who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I knew who I was. It was just that I didn't have the ability to bring it out of myself. And I think, when you see your family passing away, because as time you're getting older, I seen my granddad, he had a severe stammer, and I saw the way that he lived his life, and my gran, and my mum, and my dad. And I look back and I think, well, if I don't change it now, it's not going to change for me. I've got to be the change that I want to be. And I think it takes a lot of self-belief and changing your mindset into thinking that, look, are we going to really be blaming our speech disfluency for everything that goes wrong in our life? And as soon as I put that in a box, I just thought, okay, if I speak to somebody now and I stammer, that's what I do. There's nothing I can do about it.
Yeah, it's, for me, because I had to come from, from a very difficult, place in terms of talking. For me, my confidence, actually, the first thing that got me going on my little journey in my mid-50s was public speaking, because my cousin was a director at this little nonprofit, very small, don't be impressed, and they asked me to be on the board because everyone else was like 70s and 80s, and I was probably late 40s at the time. I said, okay, fine. And then 2 or 3 years later, they asked me to be the president because everyone was, again, 70s and 80s, and they had all done it. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. Why? For the reasons you're talking about, because I can't do public speaking, and I can't lead. I never led a meeting more than 3 or 4 people. And they kept on asking me, I kept on saying no. And finally, the 4th time or so, I said, okay. And that, much like your golf job, your golf captain thing, that got me talking. And we'd have these monthly meetings, and we'd sometimes have these events, and I'd give these speeches for 5-10 minutes at the most. But I realized, wow, I can talk better when I'm public speaking than I can conversing. And so I decided after one meeting, I had been the president for probably a year or so. I realized it, and I said, you know what? I am going to public speak all the time. And for me, at that point, that just meant speaking in phrases, and taking it. But that was a huge change for me. And then I had all these different things that went on. It would take a while. I don't want to go into it too much, and then I added in breathing and emphasis and all that stuff. Matt Lauer, I realized, he seems at the end of a sentence, he seems to emphasize things. I said, what a great way to get people to listen. Well, what I realized is that got me to breathe. For him, it was just, an effective speaking thing. For me, it got me breathing. And so I changed how I spoke, but most of it was the psychological stuff. I can get from here to there on, changing how I spoke, but then the psychological stuff, that's where I got it. But for me, confidence was another psychological thing, because while I was confident in certain other areas, like in sports, speaking, I had zero. And so what I did, Arthur, is I decided I was going to break everything into small steps. So, when I would help my son with his math, and he was this brilliant math kid, but, he would have these difficult problems to do. I said, let's just break it into little pieces. And I remembered that. And, with stuttering, as you and I talked about, people want a magic bullet. They want a quick fix. What'd you do? Oh, okay, I'll do that. Oh, okay, I'm done. I got it. No, you don't got it. This took me years. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to break it down into little steps, small steps, and I'm not going to go to the next step until I'm done. And so I went from my bedroom to the next person who's easiest to talk to, my wife, my kids, and up and up and up. So confidence for me was a step-by-step proving that I can do one thing after the next. And so it was a long journey, it was well over a year of that. And even just to say my name, Arthur, this is kind of embarrassing. But, here I am 57 and I couldn't say my name. And I decided to do a complete whole hierarchy of steps just to say my name. And it took me a few months to do this. I went from introducing myself to little kids, to good friends. Even if it didn't make any sense that I would introduce myself, I mean, I would call hardware stores and ask for a hammer. Of course they have a hammer. But before I asked for the hammer, I would say, I'm Larry Stein, But it took me a long time to even work up to that. I just worked up and up and up. And that's how confidence, for me, confidence is an earned thing. I had to earn it. And it took me a long time, but it also kept me from going back because I was always up and down. And fortunately, I haven't had those downs that I've had. So for me, confidence is a long journey.
So where did that confidence come from? Was it inside your mindset, or were you just sick and tired of not being able to say the things you wanted to say?
Kind of neither. I mean, my confidence came from just one little success after another. So, I relearned to talk in the privacy of my own bedroom, and then I would try it out on the next easiest person to talk to, my wife and kids. And then I would try it on the next easiest person, and the next easiest person, next easiest situation. I mean, this is a long process, So confidence for me was earned one step at a time.
Mm-hmm.
But, as we discussed earlier, people want to get quick fixes, magic bullet,
Yeah.
And for me, everything took long. And every time I tried to shortcut something, I fell back.
Yes.
But there is this old saying that I love, that there's a there's a short way that's long and a long way that's short. So after a lifetime of looking for the magic bullets and the quick fixes and hoping things would work out, I decided to take the long way, just one little step at a time.
Well, it seems as though it's definitely worked for yourself. You're coming over very confident, very relaxed, very fluent. So it certainly worked for yourself. And as you say, maybe the smaller steps is one way of looking at it, and that might hopefully help younger kids or their parents, the small steps to build them up. I believe that we as children that stammer, we need built up the small steps. It's what you're just talking about. It was never spoken about when I was in my sort of family environment. It was something to feel ashamed of. Maybe the small steps is a way now of making sure that these kids don't feel inferior.
Yeah, it's it's so hard being a kid with a with a real stuttering problem. I fortunately had sports. I was a big kid and I was really good in sports, and so I had that to lean on. And I had a very supportive family. I was very fortunate. And then I met my wife, who we never talked about my stuttering, but she was the easiest person for me to talk to. And my kids were very easy for me to talk to. And so I had that, and that really helped me because having those close knit, those close loves, that helped me a lot. Not everyone has that.
I'm so glad you've said that, Larry, because that I believe is the building blocks to our future. To have people that give us support and advice and help and love, encouragement. These are the things that I didn't have, and that's where I think not so much my speech, but my whole personality failed, because I had a stammer, but on top of that, I felt unloved. I didn't feel like a complete person. And children need to feel like that, and that's great to hear that you had that, and that helped you so much in your journey as well.
It really did, Arthur. My mom always said, you can do anything you really put your mind to. And things like that stick with you, even as a little kid. And even though I was having such trouble, those kind of things stick with you. And I think things like that in my mid-50s, when I really had to go after this, I think things like that were very helpful. But I think what you brought up is a nice way to end our little conversation. It's been great talking with you. Let's do this again. We have so much more we can talk about, and I love what you're doing. And we should do this again, Arthur.
Larry, I've really enjoyed this. It's been a pleasure, really has been, and you've given me a few thoughts to think about.
Terrific. All right. We'll talk again soon, Arthur.
All the best, Larry. Thank you again.
Take care.
Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.